All right, guys, now on the pod, and as we record this, the Tigers are up 3-1 in the bottom of the eighth. Correct? Am I
Yeah,
looking at this right?
top of the ninth coming up.
Top of the ninth coming up. So hopefully they can close this thing out. But we're bringing on Roger Castillo. You can follow him at Rogcast Baseball, and he's got a lot going on. So basically, I'm going to let you lay it out. You just got announced you hopped on board with Woodward Sports. So real quick, thanks again for joining us, Roger. But give our listeners a quick rundown of everything you've got going on.
Yeah. So, I just today signed a contract to be the beat writer for Woodward Sports and the Woodward Tigers beat. So there's Woodward Tigers on Twitter, which is just essentially an old podcast account. Tomorrow we're going to the Tiger Mining Report. I'm a part owner of that. So we're going to be covering the game out West Michigan's home opener against Lansing tomorrow. So I'm involved in that. And for now, that's pretty much about it. So I try to keep as busy as possible with baseball season. And this time of year, my wife is like, "Am I going to lose you every baseball game?" I'm like,
"Yeah,
sorry, this is what you inherited." So
yeah, you've got me all winter, but come baseball season, I'm all in on baseball basically. But yeah, we talked a little bit at the start of this pod about opening day, and I know you were there. I saw some videos, saw some tweets and stuff like that, and we talked about. Obviously, I'm down here in North Carolina now, so I wasn't there. Jared's doing work. He works for Bally Sports Detroit, so he was around it and everything. And opening day in Detroit. I mean, we talked about it. Ted's been to a bunch. I don't know if you can beat opening day in Detroit for Tigers, of any ballpark in the country. I mean, can you talk about what you experienced and maybe your thoughts on opening day downtown Detroit for the Tigers?
First and foremost, Ted, that 1995 Tiger hat is I bow to you, because that's honestly, of all the Tiger hats I have quite a bit. I have over 100. I have all the minor league affiliates and some of the minor league affiliates going back to the 70s, like the Montgomery Rebels and so forth. But Ted, you have a hat that is like my Moby Dick. That's the one I'm trying to find. So kudos to you on that.
There you go.
Yeah. So not to get too off track, but no, opening day I went around, got some videos, some people, and it's amazing. Everybody talks about a good tailgate. You guys cover high school football, so you even see that in a high school level, and at the NFL with the Lions, and perhaps, I don't know, Matt, how many times you go to Panthers games down there, but there's always like a party feel to the NFL. That is the same thing with opening day in Detroit. It is just a sea of humanity, but in a good way. People are just have their traditions. I got these guys who every year they were doing a fish fry one year, and they always have some sort of cooking tradition. And then we had these guys who were cooking up breakfast. So they had kielbasa and the eggs, and it was really, really good. And it's amazing when you walk around the camera and say, "Hey, I work here." And they're like, "Oh, you want free food?" But
nice.
I walked across the city, and like I said, it was cold, but it was worth it. And I cannot recommend anybody who's not in the state of Michigan, who has not gone to the Tigers opening day, should mark it off your list. If you're doing a ballpark, a list, if you're going once per year.
Yeah. Did you what did you think of the Baez walk-off home run? Or not home run, but the walk-off hit? Were you in the stadium for that? Were you out tailgating? If you were in the stadium, what was kind of your vantage point? Did you think it was a catch? Did you know it hit the wall when it happened? What was going through your head when all that went down?
So I had to do a segment for Woodward Sports. So I had to go back to there was a local bar nearby, and I was watching the game. Baez was getting up the plate, and it looked to me at first it hit the wall, but I couldn't tell because based off where I was. But then when I see him kind of did the drop, then I was like, oh, on the replay I could easily see it, but you could hear the crowd. This is a bar like just across the street, but you hear the roar of the crowd all the way from where we were at. And so I think that was one of those cases where even when Baez after the game was like, some of these times are going to be tough. And I think he was implying not everything I'm going to hit is going to get out of here.
Yeah.
And that's the implication that I got when he said those comments. So, I mean, he had no doubter tonight the left. And if he keeps doing that, aces with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
What's your feel about this Tiger teams? I mean, everything you see in the additions they've made, especially the late add with Austin Meadows. I mean, it seems like this is a team that should be optimistic. And if they can put it together, might be able to make a serious playoff run. Do you agree with that?
A lot of it has to go with right, Ted, because one of the things that I know about this team is the weakness is still the bullpen in a sense of at depth. I mean, you saw that today to Andrew Chafin, and Peralta are ready to go, and they'll be nice additions wherever they decide to. I know Chavin's going to go out of the bullpen, but Peralta's going to be a good 6 starter. We saw that last year with his changeup being his primary pitch, and it really worked really well for him. So my concern, though, is if they have an injury in the outfield, we saw this with Riley Green, who's not going to be back, might even be back past the 6 weeks they expect. If they have an injury, they're going to be kind of shorthanded on that, because if you go down Toledo and Erie, it's kind of fourth outfield haven. I mean, Daz Cameron has had he's had opportunities to prove himself, and he hasn't been able to yet. And in Toledo last week, we noticed that Cody Clemens has been playing left field. Zach Short's been playing center. So I think they're trying to think of other alternatives for that. So I think that's what's going to happen here, but they really need to shore up their outfield a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're talking about, I mean, if there's anyone who knows the Tigers farm system, it's you. And I think a big thing, finally, we're seeing some of these young arms come up that we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for Casey Mize to maybe be the guy. We've been waiting for Manning and Skubal and some of these other guys to come up and finally be like, yo, you're a big league pitcher now. There's no bouncing back and forth to the minors. You're a big leaguer. Do you think that's the biggest step? You mentioned the bullpen, maybe depth, but do you think some of these young arms coming on and maybe having, I'm not putting them in Verlander's conversation, but maybe having that jump where like you're a legit number one, like that's what it's going to take for the Tigers to become a legit contender?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Chicago's lineup is loaded, and you saw that Mize, Skubal for that matter, dude. I mean, let's start with Skubal for a second. His fastball is still elevated. He wasn't able to get a lot of, I mean, he has good stuff, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't able to generate the same kind of strikeouts he did last year. And this is one start. So
Right.
take it with a grain of salt. But I look at Casey Mize, and he is a guy that has to be a higher strikeout pitcher in order for the Tigers to be in contention. And there was a comment today on Woodward Sports that said Tigers have a collective bunch of 3 or 4 starters, because Raul Rodriguez traditionally has been a guy you see in a second or third starter. Is he enough to lead this team? Absolutely. I think he's a veteran that knows how to pitch. He's been in big situations before, which the Tigers desperately need. I love the cough button, by the way. I firmly believe, though, Matt Manning's performance today was outstanding. He did a really good job of keeping Boston off balance, but this is a team too that just got in at 4:00 in the morning. So whether it's a little bit of that, but I thought you still saw encouraging stuff from Manning. His innings were efficient, and you have to be really happy about that. But I really think it starts with Casey Mize. If he can get really striking out more batters, I think the Tigers will be in business.
Yeah. And they just won 3-1, so a big win for the Tigers here today. What about Torkelson? He's off to a slow start, but he's gonna, I think, help this team. The manager said he's just got to relax, but he's actually seeing the pitches well. It might do him well to go on the road, hit the first road trip, because there's a lot of pressure on that young man starting out at home.
I definitely agree with you on that, Ted, because there's a kind of, you kept seeing during the Valley Sports him panning to his parents, which I understand what they're trying to do, try to capture that big moment and have the parents' reaction, which is always a good piece of content. Absolutely.
Right.
But when the Tigers hit the road against Kansas City this weekend, I think that'll be a good opportunity for him to just kind of go and relax. You saw that last year when the Tigers went to Houston. That big series was kind of a big turnaround. You saw some of the bats that were struggling start getting into their own. So I think I think for anybody who's a rookie, he got squeezed by a couple of calls. Well, it's not. I mean, I'm not even trying to be like favoritism towards the ump, but I noticed something that Chris and I both noticed something. He got mad last year when he got squeezed at West Michigan or Erie or even at Toledo. Never. I mean, he go, oh, okay, what was that? But not like I saw him over the weekend, and that's great to see. To draw 3 walks against a team like the White Sox, and you're just in your first year of professional baseball, that's an encouraging sign. And I don't want fans to react, well, he's, whatever. So what? Big deal. Mm-hmm. It's not a big deal to me.
Before we get like way too far into this season, I think fans' kind of expectations of this teams were maybe a little bit too high coming in, considering how young this rotation is and how young, Torkelson, Green, all these guys are. What do you think is a realistic goal that we should set as fans for what this team can accomplish?
I said originally between 80 and 82 wins. And I think that's fair because They won 77 ball games last year, but there is a lot of things that are different this time around, comparatively speaking. You have 2 rookies in your lineup, A, when Riley Green returns, and B, you're still with the fact that Jose Cisnero is gone. He'll be on a 60-day IL. Who knows when he's going to come back, or IL?
Yeah.
Who knows who's going to come back? And I think what you're getting in Austin Meadows and Baez is definitely significant. And those two kept the Tigers in the game today, whether it was Meadows a single and then the Baez's home run, the go-ahead homer. So that to me is important. But I'm still, a part of me, as much as I want to be happy-go-lucky, there's a part of me watching the game enough to know there has to be a lot of things for the Tigers to get in that playoff spot. The Twins got better. The AL East had 4 90-game winners last year. This league is not a joke. In Seattle, I thought Seattle had a really good offseason. And even if Toronto doesn't have enough pitching, their offense is just ridiculous. So there has to be a lot of things to go right for the Tigers to make the playoffs.
And obviously health is always the big thing. You got to hope that all these guys stay healthy. And that's true for every team. But talking about the Tigers maybe not having the best depth, they need everyone to stay healthy. I mean, we saw what happened. Riley Green goes down, they go out and make a trade to get Austin Meadows. So, which actually it's a great trade. So that kind of works out. But I've got to ask you before we get out of here. I don't know if the other guys have something else, but I've got to ask you about Miguel Cabrera. He's one of my favorite players ever. Barry Bonds is my favorite player ever. But Miggy is probably right there. And obviously maybe just because of his career with the Tigers and everything, but can you, in your opinion, put his career in context? Because when I talk to some people who maybe haven't watched, as many Tigers games as us, they know Miggy's good. Yeah, he had a good stretch there, for that 3-4 years when he won Triple Crown, couple MVPs. I would personally put him as he's one of the best right-handed hitters ever. Everyone always talks about Pujols is the best right-handed hitter of this generation. And you're not wrong with saying that, but I'm like, Miggy is every bit as good as Pujols was in this generation. So I'm just curious what you're, when he's about to pass 3,000 hits and, he's already got the 500 and everything. So Miggy, I mean, is he one of the best ever to you?
Matt, he's the best Tiger I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been around, I'm the quote unquote Generation X, whatever you want to call it. Cause every year, how you identify yourselves changes every year. So I don't know how to keep up with that anymore, but no, there is nobody. I mean, he hit a Triple Crown. He was the first to do it since Carl Yastrzemski in 1969 or 67. Was it
67?
67. Thank you, Ted.
What you got, Ted?
Yeah, I knew Ted would have the answer for that.
Wisdom at this age, man.
But what he did was a rare thing, and even when he was having lower body issues, he was doing all that with muscle memory. That's impressive. And the fact that I think we, as Tiger fans, don't realize we've seen one of the greatest players. For some, last player they've seen something like that magnitude was Al Kaline in terms of hitting for average, hitting for some power as well. But Miguel Cabrera to me is just a shooting star among all this, and he's the best right-handed hitter I've ever seen for the Tigers. And they're just the way he just muscle memory, the way he approaches the game, he's smart. And I think this whole, you gotta be a rah-rah leader thing is ridiculous. And I think that's why he doesn't get enough credit, because he's not kind of guy, but
exactly.
And a clubhouse people know, and everybody knows they come to Miguel when they need advice. He has said things to the front office, like, I want some more veteran players. He's a smart guy and he knows the game. Yeah. And the fact that he was able to do this at third base, at first base, and originally in the outfield with the Marlins, man, I don't understand how you not see him as one of the greatest Tigers ever.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And my favorite part about Miguel, he always has a smile on his face. It's the best part, in my opinion. I have one more question for you. We were talking about this at the very start of the pod. I said Comerica gets a bad rap in terms of a ballpark. I think it's awesome. Great concourse, probably my favorite part about it. You've probably been to a decent amount of MLB stadiums. If you've been to Tiger Stadium, I'd love your thoughts on that stadium. If not, what's your favorite ballparks kind of around the country? Is Comerica up there?
Yeah, Comerica's up there. I've been to the Guaranteed Rate Field in Chicago. I've been to, out of all stadiums, Chase Field in Arizona. I've been to Progressive Field. It's still Progressive Field. Yeah, Progressive Field. Yep. Let me start with Tiger Stadium. Tiger Stadium, there's a lot of romanticism with it, and I definitely will agree with that. everybody loves Tiger Stadium. I have certain memories of it because when I was a safety in grade school, we got to go for free games. We got to sit in the bleachers. I thought that was really cool. I also remember everything being sticky. It's just kind of like that's the way it was. But there was a certain smell in there. And then, of course, everybody talks about the troughs in the bathroom, which were just a product of the time. But I liked Tiger Stadium because when it got loud, you felt it. You felt things moving. And I'm not one of those people that say, well, everything's old, it's bad. But no, there was a certain charm to Tiger Stadium, the same way that people look at the old Yankee Stadium, or Yankee Stadium 2, I believe it is.
Yeah.
That right field porch kind of deal. But I just love the aesthetic of when you go, especially right off the highway right there. You have all those bars in Corktown right there. It felt like a neighborhood ballpark. It had that similar feel to Wrigley Field or Fenway Park, which both I'm going to be going to sooner or later. But out of all the stadiums that I've been to, I think it's depressing, but I will say that I had a really good experience with Cleveland. The reason why it's depressing is because not a lot of people go. Once the Browns are in town, they're just like, oh, training camp. Let's just go to training camp. Screw the. I remember there's so many times that the Cleveland's been in contention. The Guardians have been in contention for division titles, and everybody's worried about Tim Crouch. I remember, Tim Crouch's health. I mean, you guys remember this? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, especially when LeBron came to town. Then
done.
Forget about it. But I would have to say I liked Cleveland quite a bit, and PNC Park is something that's one that's also going to be on my list too. But I've been to a lot more minor league stadiums, and I say one of my favorite minor league experiences, by the way, is Midland. The Great Lakes Loons Stadium is fantastic. I love that field. There's not a bad view in the ballpark whatsoever there.
That's awesome.
I got a final question for you, Roger, before we let you out of here. And before I ask the question, I'm the old guy, obviously, and I was an Al Kaline guy. I mean, if you've seen my profile picture, I'm interviewing him. He's in Tiger uniform, for God's sakes. But best Tiger hitter, bar none, right or left-handed hitters, Miguel Cabrera. That 10-year stretch he had, it was must-see TV. You're walking by the TV, you stop. You have to watch his at-bat. That's how good he is, and obviously first-team Hall of Famer. But I'm going to switch it all the way back around. You cover the minor leagues. The big story that I just saw, it still boggles my mind as a broadcaster. The Toledo Mud Hens play-by-play guy since 1975. What is it, 6,000 straight games or something? Wow, what a story.
Yeah, and I got a chance to, on opening day, I went to opening day for Toledo, and his setup is just simply the way he intertwines his regular life too, where I'll just be like, well, I just moved down this way and take my walks, and just makes everything so organic. It doesn't sound forced.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he does his cadence too as a broadcaster doesn't go kind of like I'm not a big fan of Hawk Harrelson. Everybody no, I mean, just Lorimer is like that, whatever, dude. Just call the damn game or darn game. But I just, that is impressive. I mean, Toledo has had some lean years, Ted, and you remember this is the same. You talk about some late teams in the 80s that had featured guys like Kevin Ritz and Steve Searcy and ERAs that were just over 5, and you wonder if they were considered quote unquote prospects. And he sat through a lot of bad baseball. And that Ned Skeleton Stadium, by the way, which was also a former horse track, I believe it was.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and I saw some of the old pictures were just like, oh, they play baseball there. But yeah, seriously, I bow to him. I really like the new stadium for the Mud Hens and the way he calls the game, just like an everyday man kind of thing to me.
I couldn't believe that it was 6,000 straight. At first, when I saw, I was like, oh, 6,000, he's been doing it a while. That's cool. Ted, you're probably up around 6,000 now.
Pretty close.
But I was like, 6,000 straight. How do you not miss a game at any point? That was impressive. It's cool.
Yeah, and I had to miss this podcast because of hip surgery, right, Garrett?
Yeah, so you'll never have a record like that.
No. Well, Roger, hey, listen, we really appreciate the time you've given us. Give us a shout out where our listeners can catch up with you and read your stuff and see you.
So you can find us on Woodward Tigers, the podcast. I'm in the process of changing all the artwork this evening. So Woodward Tigers, you can find us at Tiger Mining Report at Twitter or on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're putting up videos more and more. We're gonna travel. We're going to Erie this year. We're going to follow the minor league teams around. You can find me at Rogcast Baseball on Twitter, our Facebook page, Tiger Minor League Report. And woodwardsports.com. You can find all my written content as of Wednesday. So there'll be a couple articles coming out soon. And you guys have done a fantastic job. And I'm really, really excited how you guys have come along. And the most consistent show I've ever had a chance to work with when we were at Sports Radio Detroit. You guys, kudos to you guys. You guys do a fantastic job.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate the kind words, and we look to catch up with you down the road, man. We're going to be definitely staying in touch.
Ted, I can't wait to meet you and figure out a way to, again, bow to the hat.
You know what's funny? I know he probably picked that hat out in particular for this show.
I did. Absolutely.
It was well played, Ted. Well played, because you got my attention. Because I'm just like sitting in my head going, I must
Excellent.
get it.
All right, we'll see you, Roger. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
man.
See you later.